Hello, my name's Dan. I'm the technique editor for Photo Plus magazine, and in this video I'm going to show you how to remove people from your landscapes. So the first thing we want to do is open our shot. I've got elements here, but it will also work in Photoshop CC, and then we're going to head over to the layers panel. So we're going to head to window and then make sure layers is ticked, and if it isn't, that will bring up the layers panel on the right hand side there. So we can see we've got this background layer here, and what we want to do is have a second duplicate layer so that if we go wrong, we can always go back to that original image. So if you're using a PC, you want to hold down the Control key. If you're using a Mac, you want to hold Command down and then press J on the keyboard, and that will duplicate that layer for you. Now to start removing people from the picture, I'm going to hit Control or Command and plus a few times to zoom in, and then we'll hold the spacebar down for the hand tool, and we'll just drag the part that we want to remove into view. Okay, so I'd like to remove this person from shot. This part up here is going to be quite easy to remove because we've got this nice patch here that we can sort of sample from, but down here we've got a fence running through the shot, and we don't want to leave a hole in the fence because that's going to look really obvious that we've sort of doctored this image. So the first thing that I would try to do is use the spot healing brush, and we'll grab that from the toolbox. And this is an automated tool, so it doesn't always work out how you want it to, but it's kind of a good first tool to try, and it can be really quick and useful in some situations. But like I say, it doesn't always get it right. So what we're going to do here is resize the brush with the square bracket keys, and then we'll just paint over the part that we want to remove from the picture. And as we can see, Photoshop has replaced some of it, but it's not done a perfect job, so that's a little bit better. Sometimes it takes a couple of passes just to get it looking how you want it to. So we'll keep painting over that area. And I think that's probably as good as we're going to get it with the spot healing brush. But sometimes it can be really effective, and it's certainly a very quick tool to use. So it's not worked 100% here, so what we need to do is take a bit more sort of manual control. And to do that, we'll grab the clone stamp tool from the toolbox. And this allows us to actually select the part of the image that we want to use as our patch. So we'll hold the Alt key down on the keyboard and click on the part of the shot that we want to source. So I'm going to click over here because this patch of grass looks pretty uniform. And then I can just paint over the person to replace them with that part of the picture. And a good tip is to change your source point frequently so that you don't end up with repeating patterns. Now as we get closer to the fence, I'm going to zoom in just so I can see what I'm doing really clearly, and then I'm going to shrink the size of the brush down with the square bracket keys again and make sure that I don't paint over that fence pole. So that looks pretty good for the top half. Then we will source from inside this part of the fence here, and again just carefully brush along, changing the source point frequently again, and then when we get to a corner in the fence, we'll shrink the size of the brush down even more so that we can get into there. Just taking time and making sure that we don't paint over the fence pole. And then I can just increase the brush size again for this larger area. Just making sure we get every last bit. Now if you do accidentally paint over one of the poles, say for example you do something like that, what you can do is hit Control or Command and Z on your keyboard to undo that. Or the other thing that you can do is you can hold down the Alt key and source another part of your pole, like this bit over here, and then you can just paint that in to put a pole there. and that's another way of patching a gap in the fence in this situation. So I'm going to go ahead and just do the exact same thing that I've shown you with those two bits there to fill in these parts of the fence here. So I'll come back to you in just a moment when I've done that. Okay, so I've just finished off cloning in those extra bits, and I think the result looks pretty good. So I'll just zoom out with Command or Control and minus, so you can see the whole shot. And I think that looks pretty good actually. You'd be hard pushed to tell that I'd cloned that shot. So there's one more technique that I'm going to show you, because there's another way that you can remove people from your pictures. So we'll just drag another person into view. Now to start with, I'm going to use the clone tool again, the clone stamp tool, and we'll just paint over the top part of the shot this time to remove those people, because that's nice and easy. It's more the fence in the bottom half that's causing the issues, because there's a lot of detail going on there. So I've painted over the top half of those people. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the lasso tool from the toolbox, and I'm going to select this part of the fence over here, which doesn't have any people in it, so that's kind of like a good clean bit of fence to choose from. And we can see that the marching ants have selected that part of the fence. And now I'm going to go over to the content aware move tool. Make sure the mode is set to extend and that transform on drop is ticked. And then we're going to drag this patch roughly into the right place and let go of the mouse. And then because we ticked transform on drop, we can actually rotate this fence so that it lines up with the other fence poles. So I think that looks pretty good. So I'll just hit tick to set that down. And then if I hit Command or Control and D to deselect, we'll see that Photoshop's actually done a pretty good job of replacing that area with the good patch of fence from over there. We can just grab the clone stamp tool and use some of this texture over here to tidy that up. And then use a small brush just to paint over some of these areas where the bars don't quite line up. Something like that looks pretty good. So I'll zoom out, see what that looks like. Again, I think you'd be pushed to tell that that had been an edited image. So again, just using those two techniques, you could edit out the third person and you'll end up with a totally people-free picture like this one. So there you have 3 totally different techniques for removing people from your landscape pictures. So try it out now. If you don't have an image that you can work on, you can find the ogmore.jpg in the Start Images folder. Cheers for listening, and I'll see you next time.